I'm going to talk about how to negotiate mutually agreeable outcomes for suppliers and customers in the horticulture sector. This can be especially important if new technologies and products enter the market. My name is Dr. Saideepa Kumar, and I'm a research fellow at the Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture at the University of Tasmania. I've prepared these lectures with material supplied by Dr. Greg Clydesdale, who's a senior lecturer at Lincoln University in New Zealand, and Dr. David Monkton, who's lecturer of agribusiness here at the University of Tasmania. So how do we define the negotiation process? Ahlstrom and Bruton define negotiation as a process in which at least two partners with different needs and viewpoints try to reach agreement on matters of mutual interest. In running your business, you will conduct negotiations at a number of levels. It is important to distinguish between two types of negotiations. The first is distributive contracts or fixed pie contracts. This type of contract assumes there is a set amount of resources or income to bargain over, and you're bargaining for your share. An example of this would be where a house is going to be built with, say, a sale price of $1 million. That $1 million needs to be split up between the developer, the contractor, and subbies, and in which case the contractors are all negotiating for a slice of the pie. Another example might be when a retailer negotiates with a shopping mall for a retail outlet. The shopping mall will have limited foot traffic and sales potential, in which case a high rent paid will enhance the profit for the shopping mall owner but reduce it for the shop. The second type of negotiation is integrative or expanding pie. This type assumes that the resulting contract can be a win-win situation in which both parties can benefit. An example of this might be where you're negotiating with someone to carry your products. You increase your sales and they get an extra revenue stream. In practice, there can be elements of both types of negotiations in a contract. Even in the most adversarial contracts, you can negotiate for a number of clauses in a contract, not just income, as we will soon discover. Typically, there are 5 stages of negotiation. The first is preparation, and this is arguably the stage that you must spend the most time on. Before you start negotiations, you should explore your own position from every angle possible. You also need to gain as much information on your potential partner, their needs, and their reliability. One of Australia's most successful managers in the music industry is John Woodruff, who managed groups such as Savage Garden and Icehouse. In the 1980s, it was very hard to get an international recording contract, but he succeeded where others failed. He also noted that many struggling managers went to record companies as if they were in an inferior position, whereas in reality, they had substantial power. They had the power to say no. What was important is having something that the record companies wanted. He explained that it is important to understand the motives of your partner and ensuring that you offer what meets their needs. The second stage is information exchange. This is a very important stage as it enables both parties to understand each other's needs and stumbling points, and allows you to use that information to develop compatible solutions. Effective negotiators practice active listening so they can develop solutions when stumbling blocks are reached. The third stage is where you put that information to work, presenting options and counter options. And the more you listened at stage 2, the more effective you'll be at bargaining. If it is a legal contract, these options will constitute the clauses in the contract. The fourth stage is concluding, where agreement is reached on the different aspects of the contract. The final stage, of course, is execution, where you and your partner do what you agreed upon. Regardless of the type of negotiation process, it is necessary to clearly identify your goal, what you intend to achieve from this relationship. For example, what is your target outcome? What is your lowest acceptable position? And where you can compromise or compensate. Danny Ertl in the Harvard Business Review says, The real challenge lies not in hammering out little victories on the way to signing on the dotted line, but in designing a deal that actually works in practice. He says, I don't want them entering this deal feeling duped. I want their goodwill during implementation, not just their grudging compliance. And he goes on to warn, the most expensive deal is one that falls flat. Danny Ertl thinks that too many negotiators focus on hammering out a good deal. They forget that the deal actually has to be implemented. Remember that you're actually negotiating a working relationship. If the deal falls flat, you're both hurt. With this in mind, Ertl gives 5 pieces of advice. First, start with the deal in mind. Imagine the deal 12 months out. What has gone wrong? Second, help your partners prepare too. If they promise things they can't deliver, you both lose. Third, treat alignment as shared responsibility. If your partner's interests aren't aligned, it is your problem too. Fourth, send one message so that everyone has the same message. And finally, manage negotiation like it's a business process, with post-negotiation reviews. Jay Conger, also writing in the Harvard Business Review, shared comments along a similar line. He said, you see, persuasion is a relatively straightforward process. First, you strongly state your position. Second, you outline the supporting arguments followed by a highly assertive data-based exposition. Finally, you enter the deal-making stage and work towards a close. In other words, you use logic, persistence, and personal enthusiasm to get others to buy a good idea. The reality is that following this process is one surefire way to fail at persuasion. Too many people think that negotiation is a manipulative activity. In reality, the information exchange phase is a time to explore each other's interests and concerns so that you can devise effective solutions both in the bargaining and the concluding stage. You should be aiming for common ground. Imagine, for example, you are negotiating, but you have a sticking point over price. Neither of you can give on this issue. Is it then possible that you can insert additional clauses that make it possible for you to accept their price or for them to accept yours? Examples could be staggered delivery times or staged pricing depending on quantities provided. Finally, persuasion is not about convincing and selling, but about learning and negotiating. There are 4 key characteristics of effective persuasion. The first, before they even start, effective persuaders have considered their position from every angle. Second, dialogue is a form of learning, exploring the problem from both sides and developing effective solutions. Third is flexibility. Be prepared to adjust your position and incorporate others' ideas. And finally, frame the discussion to achieve common ground. To avoid sticking points, it might be necessary to discuss why an issue is so important and how it relates to other aspects. You may find other motives. For example, one group lobbied the council to build salt pools in their neighborhood. They lobbied hard for the pools, but when pressed, it was revealed that what they really wanted is for their neighborhood to have an upgrade to the existing pool, and they sought the salt pools as a way of making it happen. When the real concern for the upgrade was discovered, it opened up new solutions. As John Woodruff said, it is important to understand and explore motives. Thank you.